Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, just Daf It. Today we're doing Maseches Nazir Daf Lamed Hey number 35. We have an amazing share for you today. The content is not so amazing. Kind of boring talking about Klal U'Prat Klal, the difference in Klal U'Prat Klal and Riboy Miut V'Riboy or Miut Riboy Miut or Prat V'Klal V'Prat. What's the difference? If you know how to darshan the Torah, so it's important for you, but if it's just like simpletons like us, we don't know how to darshan the Torah, so we read what it says and we move on. So let's start. The top of Lamed Hey and Aleph, the last word of the first line. We had an interesting shita. Elizabeth Nazir says in the Mishnah that even though technically the shiurim for any product that comes from the vine, from the grapevine, is, if you eat it, is considered a kazayas. When it comes to eating the chartzanim and the zag, the chartzanim are the seeds, and the zag is the peels. You have to eat mechartzanim ad zag. You have to eat plural chartzanim, two seeds, and one peel, some sort of concoction. Prata minale, right? We learned according to the Rabbanon, right? They learned pratu klalu pral, right? Sheikh yayin v'sheichar is prat, right? Mikol asher yasem migefen mehagefen is klal, and then the prat mechartzanim v'adzag. So they learned mechartzanim v'adzag for the second part of the prat, the darshan pratu klalu prat. Minale, where do they know? Elizabeth Nazariah. Presumably they would agree with Elizabeth Nazariah. So the Gemara answers several the Gemara concedes that really Elizabeth Nazariah is only tenable according to Rabbi Lazar, the Darish Miyad V'Riboy. He darshans the pasuk as a Miyad and Riboy, not Miyad V'Riboy and Miyad, as simply Miyad, right? Yaim V'Sheichar as a Miyad, to exclude something, but Riboy, inclusionary something, Mikol Asher Yasem Migefen Ayayin, right? And Chartzanim V'Adzag he simply leaves out. Right? For some reason he leaves it out. He doesn't say Miyad V'Riboy Miyad. Why doesn't he say Miyad V'Riboy Miyad? Chartzanim V'Adzag is something, is a Miyad, right? Why doesn't he say that? Right? Must be he holds like Elizabeth Nazariah. Chartzanim V'Adzag is needed for something else. Therefore, he just darshans Miyad V'Riboy. Levi is saying, well, a different answer. Really, I'll tell you that no, it's possible Elizabeth Nazariah agrees with the Rabbana, who darshan Pradu Kol Prad. If you'll say it's just to teach me, right? That you need two chartzanim and one zag in order to be chayav. Right? It should have said it first, right? The first prat was miyayim v'sheichar. Why did it say chartzanim and zag the second prat? Why did it say afterwards? So therefore, it comes to teach me both things, right? It's the fact that the Torah went out of its way to say it as a second prat, so that teaches me that you can darshan as both part of the product called prat, and also to teach me chartzanim and zag, teach me the drasha that you need two chartzanim and one zag. So the Gemara says, the Gemara challenges that. Maybe really no. For whatever reason, the Torah wanted to write as a second prat, right? What's your insistence that it had it right as the first prat? And maybe that's all it comes to be is a prat, and not for this drasha. MK left over Oshnei chartzanim Oshnei zagim. So the Gemara concedes, no, you're right. It could technically be written only as a second prat, but what's the lashon, right? If it really wanted to teach me that chartzanim and zagim add up to a gazayas, right? Why did it say chartzanim and zag? Chartzanim plural and zag is singular, right? It should say shnei chartzanim shnei zagim. If it didn't make a difference, it would say two. If we wanted to talk about plural, it would say two plural, both by chartzanim and zagim. Oh, chartzanim and zag, or singular, right? It didn't make a difference. The shir is a kazayas, it doesn't make a difference. Teach me a new Therefore, come to teach me two things. One is part of the klal pradu, the pradu klal prad, the second prad, and secondly, teach me a new halacha that when I eat grapes themselves, the shares of kazayas, when I eat a grape seed, I have to eat two seeds and one peel in order to be chayav. And presumably, it has to add up to kazayas. The Darish Miyad Veriba, Prad V'Kal, the Prad Minale. Okay, so we established machlokes in the Mishnah, Lezer and the Chaver. Lezer says he learns our Mishnah Miyad Veriba. That's how the pasuk is informing us, right? When the pasuk says Yain V'Sheichar Miyad, Because Shirasa Megef and Ayayin, that's a riboy. Does he subscribe to the Prad method of darshan? Prad Manali. Does he hold to it at all? I'm ready. Oh yeah, Nafkale Mahaikra. He learns out of this pasuk. V'chitin ish areo chamor o shorach se prat. V'chol behem maklal. Lishmor chazar prado pireda. Prado klal prad. Yatadayala kena prad. This is a pasuk when it comes to shomrim. When it comes to people watching something, you give a shomer chinam anything to watch. You give him a donkey, a shor, a set. That's specific things. V'chol behema anything. Lishmor again is a prat, right? It's a singular to watch something. So therefore, you have protocol prat, and the Gemara darshans above mitzvah that it comes to include anything which is similar to the prat, and therefore it has to be like Sharu said, it has to be something which is not only it has to be gedulei karka, it has to become something which grows from the ground. Davar metaltlin. It has to be something which is metaltlin, something movable object, as opposed to karka. And it also has to be something which is gufo mamon, has to be worth money, as opposed to shtaros. So it includes everything except shtaros, loan documents, and karkos. For them, there's no dinim of shomer chino. The dinim in Bab Metzia of shomer chino apply differently over there when it comes to land, real estate, and when it comes to loan documents. Chazar up here, called product. Yadana kelena product. Rav Amar Rav uses a different source. Nafkalei mahaikrav im min. This is talking about a korban olam. The beginning of Sefer Vayikra. Im min. Min is specific prod. Hason klal. Son is any type of part of your flock. Kvasim izim. Kvasim are sheep. Izim are goats. Chazar a prod. Prod to call a prod. Yahadai elkena prod. So the Gemara learns elsewhere. I don't know exactly where this is. Maybe the Medrash or Zvachim talks about the only animals that are kosher for an ola. Any animal is kosher for an ola, except animals that were included that engage in bestiality, meaning that they were together with a man or a woman, so that animal can't be used as a korban. That's similar to the prat. The prat is, right, kvasimu izim normally don't have averas done with them, right? Amalei Rav Yehuda Mediskurisa LaRava. He says to Rava, "V'leilach min hatin kra." Right? There's a pasuk before that in the parsha of Ola. The second pasuk in Sefer Vayikra, min prat habehema klal bakar v'son chazar prat. Why do you learn that out of the pasuk? This is pasuk 10. He learned that. Why don't you learn pasuk number 2? Chazar prat, prat ukala prat. Learn the same thing. That all animals are good except animals that were included that violated bestiality. Amalei min hai leikal and mishma mina. So Rava says back to him, you can't learn from that pasuk. Right? The fact that behema is the klal, right? Behema, any animal is the klal. Chaya b'klal behema. I would have thought a chaya is included in behema, right? Normally we say animal doesn't necessarily mean a domestic animal. It can be a wild animal, like a deer, and you could actually offer a deer as a korban, right? So, and that would be problematic, right? That would be problematic because then the klal would be all wild animals, and we'd say wild animals could be good as long as they're not, involved in bestiality, which is not true, right? Only domestic animals could be brought as karbanos. So they say back to like chaya b'chlal behema. You can't say in this case that chaya would be included in behema. Top of behema, but haksiv bakar v'son. It says, right? It says on the pasuk, right? Bakar v'son at the end of the pasuk, which are talking about domesticated animals. Right? Havale praduklal prat. It has to be similar to the prat. The prat is domesticated animals. It has to be similar any domesticated animal. Right? To include a domesticated animal that violated kilayim, meaning that plowed a field together with an animal that wasn't. Let's say a shore plowed together with a seh. A bull and a sheep plowed a field together. That's a vishra of kilayim. Unless it's kosher mizbeach, what does it come to exclude? It comes to exclude an animal engaged in bestiality, but it's not talking about. We know from Bakar V'Son that the Hema normally includes Chaya, but in this case it can't include Chaya. So the Gemara says really it could have been technically from that pasuk. So there's three possibilities. It could have from Shmira, or these two psukim by a korban ola. Uminola dahachiu. So the Gemara says, how do you know that the concept? This concept is true of klal prat klal tzanya. V'nasata akesef b'chol asher tav nafshecha. Apparently, this is a brisa which everyone agrees with. So even Elazar has to agree with this brisa. This is going to see is a clear example of of klal u'prado klal, right? You should give when you go to Meiser Sheni, when you go to Yerushalayim to spend your Meiser Sheni to eat in Yerushalayim, you should spend the money chosher tav nafshecha klal. That's a general thing. Anything you would want to eat. But bakar of son of yain v'sheichar prad. Those are specific examples of whatever your heart desires. Chazar v'klal, and therefore it's a klal u'prado klal. Klal u'prado klal. Yedan elakina prat. Ma prat mafurish privi v'gdulei karka. What's similar to bakar son yain v'sheichar? It has to be something which is a fruit which comes from another fruit, meaning a plant, right, which produces a fruit, and then regenerates and becomes another fruit the next year. You can eat the plant, and you can eat the fruit that comes from the plant. Or an animal, you can eat the animal. You can eat the animal that comes from the animal. It also has to be gdulei karka, something either which grows from the ground or is nourished from the ground, right? And the Gemara says in other places to exclude fish and to exclude water and melach, which don't share these characteristics. So the Gemara says, "Michti klal u'prado klal kein prata dainina, klal basra mayahani," right? If you just have klal u'prat, or klal, right? We darshan it that it's basically you go with the specific, the prat, but a little more. The klal before and after add something to the prat, right? Like we said before, it doesn't have to be specifically an animal, or it has to be wine or sheikh or anything which is pre-dulei karka. So klal basra mayahani. Why didn't you say klal u'prat? Klal u'prat also. The fact it says a prat specific, and the klal before it should tell me, yes, the specific is important, but a little more than the specific, right? Ahani lo sufe called the damile. So it comes to include something else, right? The fact that it says a second klal, it's a second inclusion, right? It's just a klal prat. You only include one thing. We'll see in a second what the difference is. You'll include one thing. But now with the second klal, you'll include a little more. Obviously, it depends on what the pasuk is talking about or what the din is, right? Visu, the Gemara asks another question. Pratu klal prat, right? Ke'ena prat daininan, right? Up until now, until we talked about Ma'aser Sheni, we were talking about first prat, then klal, then prat. Ma'aser Sheni is klal pratu klal, which we're more familiar with. Now, the Gemara says pratu klal prat basically tells you the same thing, that we darshan everything like the specific thing, just a little more, right? Part of basra mayahani. Why do you need the prat, the second prat? So whereas Ila Prada Basra, Havamina Nasa Klam Mosel, that would be worse because then you say something specific, and then the Torah says a general thing. So we say the general thing is what the Torah meant, and the specific was just an example of the klal. So you include everything, right? Having Nasa Klam Mosel ala Prada Umichti. So we said Klam Mosel ala Prada. Therefore, it says a second part to tell me specific is the real thing, and a little more than specific because you have the klal also. So the Gemara says Umichti train klali Prada, train Prada klali, kain Prada dainina. It comes out the same thing, whether it's klal or klal or prat or klal or prat, right? It's basically you darshan it, basically similar to the prat, but a little more than that. Ma'ika bani ubani. What's the difference in the two? Ika, the Gemara says there is a difference. You have tarte and klali or prat. You have klal or prat or klal. Ika prata the dami la yafilu b'chatzada, right? It's a little more inclusionary. You have two klal, two generals. So therefore, of course, it's like the specific, but if it's like the specific even a little bit in one way, then it's included in the klal or klal marbinan. Trey prata the klal. However, when you have two prata and a klal in the middle, ika prata the dami mishnetza din marbinan b'chazal marbinan. It has to be specific in two ways. It has to be more similar to the prat in order to include it. Somewhere it says michti prata klal. If you just had prata klal, nasa klal, most of all prat, I would include everything basically. Bisravi kol mili. Omid v'riba nami riba hakol. Bisravi kol mili. If it just says miyud and then riboy, right, excluding something, and I darshan a riboy, like Rebbe Lezer darshan, if you include everything, it's Rabbi Komili, Ma'ika ben miyad v'riba, the prado klal. What's the difference between just saying miyad v'riboy and a prado klal? Includes everything. Ika, the ilu prad v'klal, if it was just prad v'klal, marbinan afilu alin v'lu lovin. If it was just prad v'klal, we never have a second prad, so I would say, for example, in our case, by a Nazir, he couldn't even eat not the leaves and not the shoots, not the vines, the soft vines. O miyad v'riba l'lavin in alin. However, just with miyad v'riboy, right, for some reason, I would only include the shoots, but I wouldn't include the leaves. Okay, that's the conclusion of today's Gemara. Now, the problem is, obviously, if you've been wondering, There's an obvious question over here because we've been saying until now, Rebbe Lezer subscribes to Miyad Variboy. He darshans the pasuk by Nazir as Miyad Variboy, and that's specifically what he includes in the Mishnah. Alin Vilu Lavin, both. How can the Gemara say Miyad Variboy only includes Lulavin and Alin Lo, right? According to their Rabbanan, it makes sense. They darshan Praduk Klal, and the second Prad, if it was just Praduk Klal, they would include everything. The second Prad takes away everything, not Alin, not Alin, not Lulavin, right? Because they're not similar in two ways. It has to be similar in two ways to wine or grapes, and they're not similar in two ways. Like we said before, Praduk Klal, Prad, you need it to be similar in two ways, and they're not. So Alin and Lulavin are excluded. If it was just Praduk Klal, so Nasa Klal, Mosel, Prad would include everything. But Miva Reba was subscribed to by Rebbe Lezer, according to Rebbe Lezer. He said both Lulavin and an Alin. So what's going on? How do you answer this question? So the answer to this question, there's different answers that the Rishonim. This question is brought up in footnote number 17 on 35b2. They bring a couple answers. Tosfos here answers the distinction between soft leaves and hard ones. The soft leaves, which are more edible, are on a plane with the edible shoots and are included in the prohibition, even if one employs the Mivrei method of exposition. Is these soft leaves that Reza referred to when he said that even leaves and shoots are included in the prohibition? However, here the Gemara is talking about harder leaves, which are like we said, the woody branches. Okay, that's one answer. Other Rishonim, the Rashba, change the girsa. They say the opposite. Our Gemara meant to say Praduk Klal, we'd include only Lulavin, not Alin. Miyad Variba, we include both things are also. Okay, so there's two different ways, basic ways of understanding, try to answer this Gemara. I have a third way, because I always have my own explanation. Because Tosfos is hard, because Alin and Lulavin were the words of the Gemara before, right? Alin and Lulavin, that's the words of the Gemara. So to say there's two different types of Alin and Lulavin, we're talking about that before. We're referring to the same Alin and Lulavin as we are now. And I don't like to change gears. So therefore I have a new explanation. But you're going to have to wait for Ian with Ben Sion to find out the answer, my unique answer, which I believe to be the truth. Stay tuned. Ian with Ben Sion coming up next.